So from the time we're very young girls,
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever truly intentional to instill shame in us, but things that you don't name, you inevitably shame.
Hello, and welcome back to the Sharice Williams Show. I am so excited that you're here. I'm so excited to bring to you this incredible interview with our beautiful guest, Whitney. Today, you guys, I'm just going to tell you, we're going to be talking about sex as a healing modality. So I want you to buckle up and definitely grab something to take notes with, because this is going to be so fabulous. Again, welcome back to the Sharice Williams Show, the podcast created specifically for nurses to create, launch, and scale their holistic health coaching businesses. So let's just hop on into it. I am so excited. Hey there, Whitney.
Hi.
Hey, so excited to share with you, Whitney. Let me introduce you formally, and then we're just going to hop on in. How's that sound?
Sounds
good.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, you guys. So Whitney is an intimacy and pleasure coach. She's a speaker and facilitator, teaching women with vulvas how to experience life-changing, transcendent orgasms, heal through radical full expression and sexual integration, and live performance-free and fully seen. She believes sexuality and relationships offer opportunities for deep healing, expansion, and self-actualization, and that most humans never scratch the surface of their birthright pleasure and innate sexual power. But everyone can. Whitney is the creator of the School of Sexual Sorcery and the co-creator of Women Who War. I love it. Welcome, Whitney.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, you are so welcome. So thank you for being here. It's oftentimes seems to be like kind of a hush topic, sex, the topic of sex, the topic of pleasure, the topic of orgasms. Definitely you are here to change that narrative. What's interesting is that even in the space, the holistic health space, it's still not something that is commonly talked about. And so we're going to talk about it today, girl.
I'm here for it. You know that.
I love it. So first of all, tell us, how did you arrive here? What's your background? Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So like I think all women who are raised in the culture that we live in, my earliest memories related to sex were first very pure, because all of us we're innately sexual beings. We don't know that we're sexual, but I hear a lot of stories. I'm just going to go right into this. I hear a lot of stories from women who have memories of being caught touching themselves as children, and it wasn't something they felt shame in doing until it was something that was shamed. So my journey is that, like all of us, I started out not having shame about sexuality or my body. And then I, of course, learned that, as we all do, realized at some point that I was really, really repressed, and slowly started to reawaken that part of myself through both, I think, universal divine orchestration and, some intentional work. And over the past, I'd say 10, 15 years, have been studying sex, intimacy, energetics in some form or fashion. And it became apparent to me a few years ago that the things that I had learned were possible to experience were not things that a lot of women had learned were possible. And I just thought it was a travesty, because if it's possible for one, I believe it's possible for all. We all have the same bodies organized in different parts, as Emily Nagoski says. But I started teaching reluctantly, because this is a taboo topic. This is not something that we are told is safe to talk about. And eventually, after getting over that stumbling block, I stepped into it fully and have been teaching women how to experience all that is possible within their bodies to experience, because I do believe it is our birthright. I do believe it is a pathway of connecting to our divine wholeness.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I want to ask, because you mentioned, you started teaching this reluctantly, and that you had to kind of get over that hurdle. And I know that there's going to be some listeners who are listening who are, really just now stepping into the holistic health space openly. Maybe that's how they've been living, or that's how they've been, raising their children in a very holistic way, even though they're nurses, but not really, reaching for pharmaceuticals as the first go-to, but really incorporating, so many other healing modalities. And so I wonder, just mentally or emotionally, how did you navigate and get to the point where you're like, okay, yeah, this is taboo. Yeah, this is, yeah, it may even feel uncomfortable, but I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that mental stumbling block applies to so many things. There's usually a hurdle like that between us and our purpose, is there not? If it weren't so intrinsically core to who we are and our mission of why we're here, it wouldn't feel so raw and so scary. So if you are feeling that and you're listening to this episode and you find yourself relating to what Charisse just said, recognize that there's probably good reason for it. There's something there for you, and that's a sign that your work is needed and you're on the right path. I think for me, I started having conversations. It started really just having conversations in my inner circles and witnessing my friends' response to these topics, and like my family, when they would see some of the things that I was sharing, their response to those topics. But I started by just sort of dipping my toe in. So years ago, I rediscovered dance, which is something I've done all my life. I discovered a form called Brazilian Zouk, which is deeply sensual and embodied and flowy and exquisite. And I started sharing videos of myself doing that, just not for attention, but just people were curious about it. And every once in a while I would share because I wanted to grow the community and share that this was available. And people really loved that. And that to me felt like an expression of sexual energy. It was not sexual, but that was really my first foray into being open about that energy within me. I am a trained speech language pathologist. I have worked in that field for almost a decade. And in my work, I work exclusively with transgender women now. And I think that in holding space for women who are living boldly and authentically as themselves, just in the climate that we're in, the LGBTQIA population is, really in, unfortunately, dire straits in ways that like no human should be. But to see women and to work so closely with women who are confronting all these things that society says they should be or shouldn't do really gave me the courage to recognize what was within me and wanting to come through and finally just step out of the way and do it.
Yeah. So go ahead. No, finish.
Well, I was going to say and I think that the more you step into courage, the more you step out onto the ledge, like the net will appear. I think I spent a lot of time looking for the net first, waiting for it to feel safe.
No, that's
until it reached a tipping point, and I realized, this is really kind of selfish of me to hold on to this because I'm afraid of being seen and being open. Meanwhile, there are people who need benefit. Exactly. And as soon as I started opening and sharing, those people came forward and said, wow, I'm so glad that you did that. I needed this.
Yeah. Oh God, you said so much in just that. And it's so true. What I found with, working with clinicians transitioning, into holistic health is they are looking for that net to appear first.
Yes.
And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. We have, and again, and I always share this, it makes sense. As clinicians, we're so used to having to know step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, because it really can be the difference between life and death, right? And clinically. However, in business, not so much. But we try to take that, because that has been our mindset for so long. We try to apply it to entrepreneurship, and it doesn't work. It doesn't compute. It doesn't fit. And it is us really up to us to really kind of tap in, touch, really check in with ourselves, honor that tug, honor that pull, honor that inner desire to just go for it, and to honor it and actually take the first step. The net will definitely appear. It always does. It never doesn't appear.
Right.
But then that's when faith comes in. You just got to faith. You have to understand and trust that the net will appear.
And I think it's also really valuable to see other people, other women who have taken those steps and their nets have appeared. You are a great model to your audience of what happens when you take that step and what is possible for them too, just as anyone doing and teaching work that they first have embodied is serving as an example that it's possible for me, which means it's possible for you. Here's how.
Absolutely. Now, you said something that when you said, I'm like, I need to ask her about that. You said things are possible to experience. And I'm like, oh, what things is she talking about? So what things are you referring to?
So I'll take you back. I'll tell a story. I was sitting at brunch with some girlfriends years ago, and I don't remember how explicit do you want me to go here, Charisse? Your audience can they handle it?
We're all adults. We're all adults. Listen.
Okay.
When the topic is sex as a healing modality.
Yes.
We could go anywhere. So go. I don't want you to
warning.
feel. Yeah.
I'm going to be talking about types of orgasms, listeners. If that's not something that you're open to, pause this, move on, come back later. So I was having a conversation with some girlfriends and had recently discovered squirting for the first time. That I had, it seems sort of mythical.
It sounded like you said squirting. I'm like, wait, what did
you say? I was squirting.
Got
it. I say this word?
Just say the word. Squirting is what she said.
Squirting,
in case you're wondering, squirting. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I had discovered that was actually a real thing. Mm-hmm. And I was having a conversation with some friends, and no one at the table knew it was a real thing, which I also, not so long ago, thought that it was not actually real. It was like a mythical made up thing. So things like that are things that are possible. Mm-hmm. So I'll touch on, in the program I created, School of Sexual Sorcery, for example, I teach 5 transcendent orgasms that are possible for all women with vulvas to experience. Extended clitoral, squirting, gushing, G-spot, cervical, non-contact, non-genital, and then what I call holy grail orgasms, which there's not actually a hierarchy. All orgasms are like wonderful to the extent that you enjoy them. Mm-hmm. But these are orgasms that can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on.
These are the holy grail ones?
These are the ones I call the holy grail ones. Okay. But all of these, the transcendent orgasms, what makes an orgasm something that is a transcendent experience is it either is deeply cathartic. It could rewire some part of yourself and how you perceive yourself, how you show up in the world. It could stay with you for days. It's a transformative experience. Mm-hmm. And there's a difference to me between what a lot of women think of an orgasm as being, which is a steady peak, rise, fall immediately, which is great. I call those ding and duns. And ding and duns are amazing and they're wonderful and lovely. God bless them. Yay, ding and duns. No shame in them. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg of what's possible. I think that our bodies are just so wired for pleasure, and that a lot of the narratives that we are fed don't really honor that. They don't really make space for that reality. So we are taught not that we are these powerhouses of pleasure, but that our experience of what's possible in our bodies is limited and perhaps even less than that of a man's experience. We're seen as sort of secondary pleasure experiencers when really we're the kingpins.
Yeah.
It's really, I think, our seat of power is our sexual energy as women.
Yeah. So I would definitely want to dive into that seat of power, sexual energy. But I just want to kind of backtrack just a hot second, because when we met earlier this year, so January 2023. And I remember meeting you at the conference, and you were the speaker there, and you went through the 5 different orgasms, just like you said. And I was like, wait a minute. What? There's 5? Wait, how come I don't know this? And what was interesting about that entire experience, because that was my initial reaction, like, wait a minute. And then, but I think the audience was probably, I don't know, 70 people, 80 people in the audience. And the majority of the other, and it was all women. The majority of those women were saying the same thing. One of the ladies next to me, she was an older lady. She was so adorable. She was like, "What's gushing?" And I was like, "I'll tell you later." Because I didn't want to miss anything that you were saying. So I'm like, wait, this is news to me that there's 5. Like, whoa, my God. And then, and so very interesting, very fascinating. Why do you think we haven't been taught this on a larger scale? Because I would venture to say, out of the 80 women that were there, all backgrounds, professional, entrepreneurial, some of them were professional, like C-suite. Some of them were entrepreneurs, new in their entrepreneurial journey, further along their entrepreneurial journey. Some of them were clinicians. Some of them were attorneys. You had a little bit of everything. I think the youngest was 29 or 20 something. And then the oldest, she was like 70 something. So you had all these white, black, young, old, different, denominations, all of these things. But the thing that was consistent was none of us knew.
Yeah.
None of us were educated around this specifically 5 different types of orgasms. Are there more?
Right.
Are there more?
Yes. So I wanted to share that. So every orgasm is unique and different. The reason I teach these 5 is because I've narrowed down. These are 5 that are teachable. There's a roadmap. You can experience these. But the truth is, Charisse, that our bodies are wired for pleasure. And once we open those portals and we learn how to receive and how to amplify, there's no limit. These 5 are just sort of the entry point. Like, these things are possible for you. Here is your dessert tray of things you can choose from, but there's an entire bakery.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I love when women come to me and they share experiences that they've had. I had a woman after the workshop that you referenced share that she had an orgasm. She'd never had one before. She had one for 30 minutes. So I was like, I didn't know that was possible. Our bodies can do things that are extraordinary. I am not the keeper or the limiter and the determining factor in what your body can experience, but I am pretty confident that it can experience much more than you realize it can. So why do I think this information isn't widely known? Because you're right. All the workshops I do, it's very rare that there are sometimes a few people who know of these or have had. Occasionally women have had transcendent orgasms. And that was once me, but don't know how they happened. Certainly don't know how to invite them again. It was just like this incredible, but there's no understanding of how that happened and how they were able to invite that.
Yeah.
So,
and I love that you're saying invite instead of like achieve. Oftentimes we hear very, I guess, masculine terms as it relates to orgasms, which, achieve, achieve an orgasm or reach orgasm, or I don't know, instead of invite or experience.
Experience is a great way to think about it also. That's a lot of what I teach, is just reframing how we think about pleasure. And to answer your original question, I love opening my workshops by asking women what they were taught to call their genitals. So I'll ask you listening to reflect on what you were taught to call your genitals when you were growing up. Charisse, what were you taught to call yours?
It's funny what I said.
I think I remember what it was because I think you shared it. I was like,
I think I did too.
That's getting written in the book for posterity.
No, my mom used the book of posterity. My mom used to always call it your sugar. Like, don't let anyone, touch your sugar, or don't let it. And it was not sugar, but sugar. Like,
Sugar,
or
which
don't
is
let
a
anybody.
really cute name. Like that's
It
one of the
really
cutest
is,
ones I've
right?
heard.
Or don't let anybody see it or touch it or whatever. It was like, just don't let anybody, that's your sugar, that's yours. And it's like, okay, all right.
So let's say I was taught to call mine private parts. I grew up in a pretty sexually progressive, non-explicitly shaming, religiously indoctrinated family, and still I picked up this shaming. So let's pretend, Therese, you and I are little girls on the playground. We both know this body part is an eye, this body part is an elbow, this body part is a knee, and kids are curious, like, what is this body part? I say, oh, that's my private parts. You say,
it's my sugar, and you can't see it because my mom said.
exactly. So there,
Right.
even if those conversations don't happen on the playground, kids are taught that every part of their body has a name except that part.
Yeah.
Like we don't talk about it. We don't even name it. Like we're going to tell you to call it something, but people are going to have different names for it because you just don't talk about it. It's like Voldemort, like that which shan't be named. So from the time we're very young girls, I don't think it's ever truly intentional to instill shame in us, but things that you don't name, you inevitably shame. And
I love that. Can you say that again?
Yes, that which you don't name, you are likely to shame.
So true.
If it's not safe to even say the name of your vulva, to give it a name, inherently what you are learning is that part of your body is hidden. It's shameful. It's dirty. It's wrong. There's a reason why we don't give it a name. So I think that, and that's just sort of programmed into society. It's very common. We heard a lot of very interesting names for vulvas in that workshop, did we not?
It was hilarious. I mean,
it was hilarious.
And I'm like,
not one person was taught it was called a vulva, as I recall.
One person in the entire room.
Which, ladies, if you don't know already, the vagina is the canal from your vulva to cervix or womb, and the vulva is your external genitalia. Vagina actually means a sheath for a sword. So I think that the roots of, I mean, if you go back like really deep, let me like step a little onto my soapbox, like patriarchal. It's patriarchal, it's control, it's, for the purpose of controlling women because our sexuality, I think, is so powerful.
Yeah.
And you look back on ancient civilizations that were matriarchal, like the mother was the dominant figure, which makes sense because all life is birthed through women. But I think that the short answer is we aren't taught about these transcendent orgasms or what is possible for our bodies to experience because we aren't even told that part of our body has a name. Yeah. So anything beyond that is automatically cut off.
Right.
Like we are shut down to it. Nobody's going to talk about it.
Right.
So it's just not information that is explored, shared, unless there's opportunity and invitation to have these conversations, and these conversations are wanted.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I witnessed at that particular event is that everyone in that room, although initially, I think we're all scared. We were like, what is she's talking about? What? And then it shifted to how can we learn more? Like, how can we have more of this conversation? How do I have these types of conversations with, I don't have daughters, but I know there are other women in the room who are saying, how do I not shame that, that very sacred, powerful part, right, of our bodies. And so it was very interesting to just be in the room as the discussion was happening. And there was that people did want more. People did want more of that level of conversation. And so I want to, if you could touch on the connection between, actually, so it was really interesting. I was scrolling. I was on Facebook. I was scrolling, and I came across someone that I follow. And one of the classes or workshops or whatever that she was teaching, it caught my eye. It said it was climax and cash. And I'm like, what? What do those have to do with anything? Climax and cash. And so I would love to hear you share a little bit about the connection between whether climax, orgasm, pleasure, and success or finances.
Sure. So My area of expertise, if you can call it that, like, is in,
it is.
I feel like expression, sexuality, pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
I hire coaches whose expertise is in money and business for a reason, because together we're a really beautiful team.
I am sure.
But I can speak to what I believe and what I have witnessed, experienced to the fullest extent that I can. So our sexual energy is also known as our life force energy. It's what creates babies, businesses, art. It is our creative generator. It's also what we're tapping into in sexual intimacy. Like if we are open to fully doing that and not just going through the motions. So that is a really potent energetic source. It is what creates and drives co-creation with whatever it is you believe is co-creating with you. And because it's often repressed or shut down as a result of shame, religious indoctrination, trauma, abuse, there are so many things that block us from experiencing all that is possible to experience. And it's not our fault. It's not our fault. A lot of times we are cut off from the full potential of that power. So I think that in classes, I would guess climax to cash.
Yeah, climax to cash.
The link is probably related to unblocking that power source and reconnecting with that flow of energy between yourself and the greater energy source, using, in this case, sexuality and pleasure, because it is, all of us as humans are products of sex. We're all products of at least one orgasm. And
at least one.
At least one. Hopefully everybody did, but at least one.
We know at least one. Yeah, right.
At least one. And it's sort of like the roots of our origin story. Every single person you ever encounter in the world, have fun with this one for the rest of your life, is the product of an orgasm.
And there you have it.
There you have it. So when you cut yourself off from the source of the power which created you, to come back into your power, you have to unblock that, I think, and reclaim it. And that can be a process.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that. Why is it important in your mind for us as entrepreneurs to prioritize our pleasure?
Oh, that's a rich question. I love that one. I think that a lot of people hear the word pleasure and they have the knee-jerk interpretation of selfish. There's something selfish about wanting to experience pleasure. And if that is something that a part of you, when hearing pleasure, feels constriction around, I would invite you to, first of all, explore why.
Explore it. Yeah.
What is that giving you information about? And also recognize that, first of all, you have big work to do in the world. You have really big work to do in the world, and your work is needed. There are people who need you. There are gifts that you are given and that are wanting to come through you. Pleasure, to me, is really it's an energy clearer. And there are many ways to experience pleasure, not just in sex, but
right. And pleasure, I think I was going to say, I think that's really important to highlight as well, because oftentimes, as you mentioned, when we think pleasure, number one, sometimes the immediate knee-jerk reaction is, oh, that's selfish. And I think the other thing is immediately when you think pleasure, you immediately think of sex. And it's like, there's so many ways, so many things that we can do to experience pleasure. So if you want to talk about that, I know I totally cut you off. You want to continue your sentence, but then circle back around to different ways that we can experience pleasure.
Oh, please. No, I love this conversational flow. So one of the practices that I recommend to my clients is I have my clients set a timer twice a day. And when that timer goes off, they take a moment, literally just a moment, to bring awareness to some physical sensation that they feel in their body or against their skin, and bring their full awareness to that, and like really lean into that sensation. Okay. And recognize that was there. You just weren't aware of it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And learning to find pleasure, I think, begins in learning to be aware,
Yes.
learning to experience that which is available to be experienced. So before you can experience true, rich, wild pleasure, you have to be aware of what is available in front of you and learn how to really embrace what is in the moment.
Yeah. It requires presence.
It
That's what I'm
requires
hearing you say.
presence. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, that's so good.
And
So
when
good.
you are,
Go ahead.
go
No, I
on.
was going to say, so often we're always on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And we're looking for, and we're not present
Yes.
for ourselves. We're not present for our kids. We're just not present in the moment. And so to your point about just being aware, like things are always there, but being aware and being present in the moment so that we can kind of just slow down for a second, not all day, just as you said, just for a second, to check in and raise our awareness and be present in the moment. So yes.
And this is a practice. Nobody is going to do this 100% of the time. It's like a yoga. You get on the mat, you do your practice, you roll up your mat, you go home. You don't think for the rest of your day, hey, am I still doing my yoga practice? Am I living my yoga off the mat? You just trust it's doing what it's meant to do. And I think that the benefit of making pleasure, allowing pleasure to be a practice that's cultivated is that it starts to shift how you show up in the world. When you are fully resourced, when you are in overflow and you feel replenished and rejuvenated and full, think of a time in your life that you felt really fulfilled, really satisfied, really nourished in the key components of your life that are most important to you. There was more of you available to give to the people that you want to give to do the things that you feel you're detracting from by giving yourself whatever is pleasure to you. You actually give more because you are giving from a place of abundance and overflow. So it's really an investment in, of course, yourself, and you're worth that, but also the things you're here to do and the people you're here to serve and the things that are important to you. They will all benefit from you being in overflow.
I love that. I did a reel not too long ago, and it's something that I share with my clients all the time. And it's the importance of prioritizing yourself and refilling your cup with whatever it is that you need to refill your cup so that you can give for your overflow. And I think what we've been taught and what's been modeled and how we've been indoctrinated is just give. Like women, that's what we do. We give. Nothing wrong with giving, but not enough emphasis is put on refill your. How can you give something you don't have? How can you give what you don't have?
Absolutely.
Yet we think we're serving, we think we're giving, and it's like you're giving from an empty cup. I want you to try to grab a cup, and if it's empty, try to get some more out of it. There's nothing coming out of it, and so important to refill our cup, whatever that might look like for you individually, so that we can serve our clients at the high, at the highest level. So that way we, not just our clients, but our partners, our spouses, our children, our friends, our family, just being able to give from your overflow. And so I would really love to share, I would love for you to, I want to share like one of the things that I have that's non-sexual, one of the things I've prioritized because it does bring me so much pleasure. And I would love to hear some things that perhaps you do on a daily basis. But one of the things that I've really started to do, particularly since the workshop, is I get so much pleasure from matcha. The whole ritual, like the water and then the little, whatever the electric stir thingy is, and just even picking up my mug and then holding it and feeling the warmth radiate from the cup into my hands. And I mean, it's just a whole thing, and it's so pleasurable to me, and it brings me much pleasure, joy, and happiness. And it's matcha, and it takes 3 minutes. I've absolutely prioritized pleasure in all fronts. So yes, sexually as well. But the matcha thing, man, let me just tell you, the matcha is everything.
I just got chills hearing you describe the ritual of preparing your matcha. Like, I experienced pleasure through your remembering of the pleasure of that experience. I think that's a beautiful illustration. And I mean, my pleasure practice of choice, the thing that I do every single day is dance. I find it to be incredibly regulating. I've danced all my life. If I haven't danced during the day, like I will like twerk for a minute before I brush my teeth at night or something, like just to move some energy. You know,
before you brush your teeth.
Twerking is a sacred expression. It moves that chakra energy.
It does.
Energy, totally.
It really does.
But the beautiful thing about what you just shared is that, so twerking is like more connected to your chakra, whereas what you described is something that on the surface appears mundane, like an activity you could easily do without thinking, without bringing awareness to it. And you've found a way to like really drop in and to really experience the richness of that. And I want to point this out to listeners because I think it's incredibly important. That is, I think, the cornerstone of experiencing, or not the cornerstone, that's the foundational base level of experiencing these transcendent orgasms that are possible. It comes from learning to experience and immerse yourself in pleasure outside of the bedroom. And I think that's because in the bedroom, there's a lot of vulnerability, a lot of wounds, a lot of triggers that could come up. If you practice pleasure in a space that's safe and feels non-threatening, it's going to become your default way of being, and it's going to be easier to access in more highly charged environments like a sexual encounter. It's a practice.
It's a practice. Okay. And so what I'm hearing you say, Whitney, is for us to be more present in our everyday doing and our everyday being, really, to be more present in our being and things that we probably do anyway. Because a lot of times when we're hearing new information, it's like, okay, add this in. And a lot of times it's like, wait a minute, I can't add anything else in. Right. So it's not even a matter of adding anything in. It's what I'm hearing you say is look at some of the things that you're doing on a regular basis anyway, but slow down for a second. And when I say slow down, I'm not talking physically slow down. I think I make my matcha at the same speed that I've always made it. It's just that I am present. My focus, my awareness is there. And I am enjoying that 3-minute, process. The aroma, the heat, all of that. And so looking at different ways. So the invitation is for those listening. So look at what you do as part of your regular day and find the pleasure in the things that you're already doing. Yeah. And allow yourself to experience pleasure in things that you're already doing as a way to kind of practice, if you will, so that your body, it's like you're teaching your body how to drop in, you're teaching your body how to experience pleasure so that when you are in the bedroom, you can have those transcendent orgasms or whatever.
That's exactly it. Yes, I think that permission piece is huge for women because we are taught essentially to be martyrs, to give, and to pause and take 3 minutes to make a matcha and really immerse yourself in the joy and the sensory experience, the sensuality available in that experience. Just something you do anyway. Yeah. It teaches you, going back to that embodiment piece, because until you start embodying a new way of showing up, it just lives in your head. Right. But embodying that you are worthy of experiencing pleasure in that little moment will translate into you realizing, oh, well, then I guess I'm worthy of experiencing pleasure in this area of my life that's more highly
more pleasure, not just pleasure. Because I think that's another thing too. I think, a lot of us are experiencing pleasure, but what about experiencing more pleasure, doing the same thing?
Yeah.
Right. But
experiencing
just really
more pleasure. Yeah. And also having permission to ask for what you want, to invite conversations about what you want. I think that receiving is such an edge for a lot of women. It feels so vulnerable to receive. And there are so many reasons for this, but it's one of the themes that I hear most often in working with my clients is just the edge of leaning into receivership.
Absolutely. Because it's again, going back to, you talked about the patriarchal, society, it's what's been modeled. Particularly as it relates to entrepreneurship. And I see this all the time with my clients as well, is the the hustle, the grind. Like my clients come to me because they don't want to build a business in an energy of hustle and grind, right? Because I am all about ease and flow, which is really tapping in, right? That's why we vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, it's because I've built multi-six-figure businesses in hustle and grind. And it was great. I mean, the financial, rewards of it was great, but in terms of it sucked.
Yeah.
It actually sucked.
You didn't have much pleasure.
I didn't. What's pleasure? No pleasure at all. But really learning how to shift it, and not that you're going to totally disregard, that masculine energy, because you got to get shit done, right? Things got to get done, and that's when we tap into our masculine energy, and that's the doing part. But also learning that there's a very beautiful balance, a dance, if you will, between our tapping into our feminine energy and our masculine energy. And that feminine energy is that receivership, which is so important as entrepreneurs, as nurspreneurs, but it's particularly across the board, but health coaches, holistic health coaches, because when you look at how things exist in the world, I always talk about the law of polarity. And so if you have masculine, you've got to have feminine. There's got to be a balance. There's got to be an ebb and a flow. But when it's all masculine, because I got to get shit done, and there's no feminine, no receivership, leaning in, trusting, allowing, flowing, ease. It's a struggle. I mean, really, it's a struggle. Because you're out of balance and you're not honoring the rhythmic, the universal rhythm of life and of the world.
I think that's a really important point. And I think that especially as women business owners, that we have to hold the pole of masculine energy more than is probably comfortable or natural for us.
Yeah.
I mean, not everyone has a predominantly feminine energy. There are some women who do identify more strongly with their masculine energy, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, right. I think one of the things that has been most transformative to me in this journey, just personally, of learning what I have learned about the power of sexuality to really enhance our life and transform and heal, is that by learning how to fully drop into my feminine in the context of pleasure and sexuality, what that's allowed me to do is on the inverse, more fully command my masculine energy when I need to, because there is now that balance.
Yes.
Before, I wasn't getting as deep into my feminine as I have capacity. So I wasn't able to go as comfortably into my masculine as I have capacity. And I think that that's, I don't think I'm alone in that. I think that a lot of women sort of are experiencing burnout or overwhelm or strain because they are so comfortable in their masculine, but they don't have any outlet to experience the depth of their feminine.
Yeah. And so some outlets could be twerking.
Twerking.
Finally enjoying matcha.
Enjoying matcha.
Enjoying matcha. Orgasms. Whether they are I was going to say self-induced. I don't think that's the right word.
Self-invited.
Okay, I love that. Self-invited.
Self-gifted.
Self-what? Self-gifted.
Self-gifted.
I love that. Self-gifted. Or with a partner, whichever. What are some other ways that we can, again, experience pleasure, really tap in and drop into our feminine energy? What are some things?
I have a tendency to go straight to the foundation. Like people who work with me are very excited to learn about transcendent orgasms. And of course, that's what I teach. But before we can do that, we've got to lay the foundation. Let's excavate and make sure we have a solid base. I'm going to go do that now. I would say to start with boundaries, understanding what you have capacity for and where your limits are, and honoring the fuck out of those.
Yeah, for sure.
And that is work. That's something that sometimes takes work, because you're reprogramming that give mentality and learning that part of receiving is honoring your capacity, and part of giving is honoring your capacity. So I think that giving some thought and bringing some awareness and some intention to recognizing what it is you need to show up fully, where your lines are, what you can't do, or what drains you or constricts you, and why that is, and what you need to be different, is I don't want to say it's overlooked, but I think it's something surprising that this is probably not the answer that people were expecting. But I think that's really, really important.
It's huge. It's huge. And yeah, it's huge. I won't even go there because I think you did it justice. So boundaries is something very simple, something easy that we can do, along with some of the other things that we just mentioned. Yeah, that's really good. What would you say to the woman who's listening that says, okay, I think I've good on the boundaries. I think I've been working on that. What's something else? What can I layer on top? What else can I do?
So I think the next layer beyond boundaries, so taking it a step deeper, step higher, depending on how you're visualizing. I think in visual pictures. I think the next layer is tuning into your body. So building awareness of what you are physically experiencing in your body, because your body is your most honest communicator. It never lies to you. You might misinterpret or your brain might lie, but your body is always honest and reliable. And for me, this was something that I was shut down to. I think a lot of women are shut down to the experience of, first of all, being aware of what they're sensing in their bodies and then interpreting that so that they can act on it. I'm happy to offer a practice if you'd like me to offer a practice and how to do this. So a basic practice. I love
experiential stuff. So yes,
I'm all about embodying different ways of being, because until you embody it, and you can't do anything with it if it's in your head, you have to experience it and feel this is what it feels like too, whatever the thing is. So I listen to Spotify. I'm going to use Spotify as an example. If you turn Spotify on, the radio, whatever it is that you're listening to, and it can be in your car, but only stop and listen to the songs that you feel that feeling when they come up. So you will feel a physical sensation that you could describe as an expansion of sorts, like a flicker or something that is a expanded feeling. Those are the songs you listen to. Anything that doesn't give you that, you skip. On the flip side, pay attention to the songs that create contraction response. So this is teaching you what your body communicates when it is a full yes, a nah, or a no. And this is something that's really important throughout life, and that women, again, it's generational. There's so much to this, but a lot of women have had to shut down these yeses and nos just for survival. And this is an easy practice to tune back into. What does it feel like in my body when something is a yes? What does it feel like when something is a no? And then the step beyond that is learning how to communicate what is a yes, what is a no, what you need to be different. And all of this may seem very basic and foundational, and like it has nothing to do with sex, sexual energy, or pleasure, but I guarantee you that when you feel free and like you can trust yourself to hold on to yourself, that will ripple out into all areas of your life. Even if you never work with me, you never join one of the cohorts of School of Sexual Sorcery, this is transformative.
Yeah. And something you said a second ago, oh goodness, you said honoring or being willing to voice or to ask for what you want. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one of the, again, going back to embodiment, one of the practices, I'm pretty sure I did it in the workshop where you and I met. So. Do you remember the one that I'm talking about? The practice of
touch your hand or your arm?
So there, and I guess we don't need to go into the practice. I'll just go into what it illustrates. So there is this intrinsic belief, I will say, that a lot of women live from, which is to be valuable as a woman, I need to be giving. Whether it's in sex, like I need to be giving pleasure. I need to do something to be worthy of having this life or receiving pleasure. There's this expectation on themselves that they have to do in order to be worthy of something. And when through in the instance of that practice, when we learn in our bodies that we give more when we are open to receiving more, what happens is we realize that not only is it a gift to another person to meet us and to give us what we need, but it's something that enriches their life because it allows the opportunity for more of us to be available to them. So I think that it's counterintuitive, but this same belief of I have to always be giving, and in order to be worthy of receiving, I have to first give. It's counterintuitive that in order to give most fully, I have to be willing to deeply receive. And that in doing
it goes back to that polarity. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And I remember the exercise, and I know the listeners weren't present for that, but we were facing each other, like two people, everyone was paired up. We were facing each other, and we had to ask. And these are people like I think the goal was like for you not to be with someone that you actually knew. I'm not sure, but I was paired with someone I didn't know. We had to face each other and ask for what we wanted. And I'm like, this is awkward. Is that the experience? That's the experience you're referring to, right?
That was one of them. So keep in mind, like, these are women that you have interacted with. These are women who you've spent days with. You've connected with deeply, and then you were face to face, and it was something like, I would like you to touch my shoulder, or I would like a hug, or I would like to just stand here, like whatever it is that you wanted in that moment. And you knew that it would be received well, and it still was edgy.
But it was very edgy, and it was just it brought a level of awareness to me, like, why is it difficult to ask for what I want?
Why is it difficult to ask for what you want?
I don't know.
I'm asking the audience. I asked myself. Yeah.
Right.
All of us can sit with that question.
Yeah. And I remember my hair was there was like a piece of straight hair that was kind of, blocking my view a little bit. And it was annoying me. And I asked the person, I said, can you, do you see that hair? And it was like, it was so choppy. It wasn't like, could you remove the hair that's blocking my, I was like, do you mind? Like, as if it was a nuisance or whatever. It was just interesting to observe what was going on. Like, could you, would it be okay if you just slightly, do you see the hair? Just slightly swoop it over. You can put it wherever. And I'm like, this is weird. Why am I doing this? This is so weird. But it was interesting at the same time.
Yeah.
Very interesting at the same time. And it really does speak to us not really being used to asking for what we want and receiving it.
And the receiving piece
but it was so good.
The touch exercise, which is really hard to explain over a podcast. But that took it a level beyond and tell me, because you experienced, I facilitate it, I've experienced it, but the intention of that practice was to first bring awareness, like it's normal and it's common to have difficulty asking for what you want in contexts that aren't charged. So naturally, it's going to be more difficult in contexts where it might be more charged, and that's okay. Yeah. And let's work with that. Let's start here. And then the touch practice was intended to illustrate the giving by receiving, which was intended to bring some safety to the concept of asking for what you want, even though it is edgy, and opening yourself to receive it fully. But it can be really daunting to ask for what we want as women. We've relied on others for millennia to survive.
Right. And I think so. I'm listening to our conversation from the ears of our listeners right now. And I think there's some women in both camps, like, oh, I don't have a problem asking for what I want. And that may or may not be true, depending on the situation. And then there's other women who clearly know, like, oh yeah, I don't like asking because it feels like I'm a burden, or I feel like I don't know enough, or like whatever the case may be. I just want to invite you, those of you that are listening, just to invite you to really check in with yourself and see, okay, what camp are you in? And the ones that are like, oh, I don't have a problem asking for what I want. Is that ego? Like, do you or do you not? And I'm not saying one way or the other, but I really want you to just check in with yourself. Is it conditional? Do you not have a problem asking for what you want as long as you're running the show? Right? Or as long as you're the person in charge in the room. If you're not the person in charge in the room, do you have difficulty asking for what you want and receiving? So here's the thing, it's the asking and the receiving.
Yes. And also the asking can be a defense. It can be a guard, or it can be an invitation. And that was something that I had to learn, because I think that I was shut down to asking for what I wanted for a long time. And then once I learned how to do that, I was asking for what I wanted left and right. And then at some point I realized, oh, this is sort of me trying to maintain control.
Right?
Oh, gosh. Controlling my environment. Like, tell me if that resonates with you, ladies. Who are my fellow control freaks in the room?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello, my name is Teresa, and I'm a control freak.
So now the place I am in my journey is to bring awareness to why I am asking for what I want truly, and how, and am I creating an opportunity where I will be have opportunity to be fully met and seen, or am I shielding and guarding because I'm afraid of losing control?
Oh God, that was good.
Need questions to sit.
That was good. Oh my gosh, that was really good. Yeah. And so here's the thing. I think the moral to the story is become aware, right? Become aware, check in with yourself. No, and here's the thing, no judgment one way or the other. There's not a better way, but just become aware and recognize, okay, this is my, my typical way of operating. And I feel like I might want to experience something different now. And that's okay. And then also, moral to the story, our story today, checking in with yourself, taking time to really prioritize pleasure. Every time I hear Janet Jackson Pleasure Principle, like, because we played that song at the thing, right?
Yeah.
I know. Janet's like my alter ego, in case you didn't know. And yeah. And but every time I hear the word pleasure, I hear Pleasure Principle song, which is kind of cool. But being present and taking time to prioritize your pleasure, whatever that might look like for you, and then understanding also your clients. Your clients are dealing with navigating these same things, these same issues, if you will. And so just knowing, I think, again, having this conversation is just really powerful, because we're just really raising the awareness around what's going on with us, but then also what's going on with our clients, and really even encouraging them to incorporate some of these practices as well. Even though I know this isn't necessarily their specialty, everyone that's listening, but these are little things that we've shared today are things that anybody can do for themselves and can teach others to do as well. And that really brings me to a point where I know you have something coming up, like for those that are listening, that are thinking, I really want to learn more about this, not just for myself, but so that I can really help my clients at a higher level. What do you have coming up? Because you have something that's happening in July, August, right?
I do. So the Women Who Roar retreat is at the end of August. That is outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in this beautiful forest retreat center. Information about that is on my website. But as far as deepening understanding of how to set boundaries, how to ask for what you want from a place of confidence and openness and invitation, how to experience all that is possible for your body to experience, these 5 transcendent orgasms and beyond, really to unlock your innate birthright pleasure that is always there, just waiting to be reclaimed. That program, which I think is what you're referring to, is School of Sexual Sorcery. It runs twice a year. The next cohort starts in September. So we'll be opening at the time of this recording. It's June. It will be opening next month. And that's a group program. The women who go through it are curious, I would say, generally. It is much like this conversation, not explicitly sexual, but there are instructions about how to experience these orgasms. But a lot of what we do is foundational. And then the ripple effect translates into your work, how you show up in your family, into how you show up in sex. It is really so core, I think, to who we are as people, our sexual expression, that when we start to free and unlock that and uncoil these shackles of shame that have held us back from our fullness as humans, we start to embody our fuller, most authentic selves. And it's radically empowering and transformative. So if there's some part of you that is curious about what your body can experience, or just feels called and desiring more freedom within themselves, this is perhaps something that would be a good fit for you.
I love that. I love it, love it, love it. And what I'm going to do is, and for those of you who are thinking like, I love that too, I'm going to link it. I'm going to link all of that in the show notes. So that way, they'll be able to click on that and have access to that. So that's going to be absolutely amazing. As you were speaking, one thing that came to mind is, and I think I'm going to do this for an episode where we track, run the numbers and share the numbers. But I recall very distinctly when I was making sure, I was extremely intentional about prioritizing my pleasure in all ways. I had my first 60K month. And I'm like, oh,
yes, you did.
I'm like, wait a minute. So I just have
to go.
Let me make some more matcha. No, but seriously.
Money and matcha, your next course.
Oh, girl, let me write that down. Money and matcha. I love that. I love it. Money and matcha. Yeah, that might be onto something there. But yeah, I remember it very distinctly. And I'm like, because I said, what was different? What was different? I prioritized my pleasure. Yes. In all ways. Yeah. And so I think I might do a whole podcast episode on that, because that sounds really fun. And so, Whitney, you have shared so much with us. This has been a truly fun conversation. This has been a very rich conversation. This has been a very impactful, empowering, enlightening, taboo conversation. And I've enjoyed every bit of it.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I love your voice. It's so peaceful and calm and nurturing. And I love it. I love it. I can that speech pathologist, right? But it's just the essence of who you are. And I think your love comes through your voice. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your time, your knowledge, your expertise, your willingness to share. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. And if this has resonated with you listening, I would love to hear from you on Instagram at Pleasure Sorcery, or if you are called to explore School of Sexual Sorcery or the Women Who Roar Retreat, information about that is available on my website, pleasuresorcery.com, and you can pop over there for a juicy freebie.
Love it.
Get on my email list and receive more offerings. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. And I'll link every single thing that you said. I'll link your IG and your all the ways to get in touch with you, because I know people are going to be like, wait, I need more. So again, thank you so much. Thank you to the listeners for tuning in for this episode. I would love to hear what you learned, what one little thing that you're going to take away from this. I invite you to hop on over to the Holistic Health and Empowerment Facebook group and just post in there. Or just send me a DM. Either way, I want to know that you're taking actionable steps. We've dropped lots of little gems on things that you can do that are simple. Don't take a lot of time. It's just really about a matter of prioritizing it and being intentional. So share with me what it is that you are doing intentionally. And with that, you guys, I will see you next time for another incredible episode of The Sharice Williams Show. Bye for now.